first down. They hand off to Marlon Mack. Huge hole, 50-yard line. He's at the 40, still going near sideline. He's at the 10. He's at the 5, and he will score. Touchdown, Marlon Mack. Touchdown, I-N-D-Y. And again, it's picked up. It's Darius Leonard. Leonard with his second INT, and he's streaking down the near sideline. He's at the 40. He's at the 30. He's at the 20. He's going to go. A pick six for the Maniac.
Horseshoe is back, baby. The horseshoe is back.
What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Bring the Juice Colts podcast. So glad that you chose to join us again for another episode, especially during the bye week. Not a whole lot going on from the Colts side of things. Obviously, the Colts are going to have this Sunday off, this week off from football. Right now, they sit at 4-2. Lots of good things. There's some bad things. And today, I wanted to bring you my list and Derek's list of 5 Indianapolis Colts that we feel like are guys that need to get more snaps after the bye week. So these guys can either be guys that we just feel like aren't getting enough snaps, maybe they just aren't getting enough in the rotation, or they're just not being utilized enough. So one of those two things are how we're going to approach today's episode. And so obviously Derek is still on the mend. Good news is he got out of the hospital a few days ago. So hopefully he's going to be back with us very, very soon, which is super encouraging, super exciting. Thank you all so much for your prayers for Derek. And I'm sure that he really appreciates it as well. But so for our list, we have 5 different guys. And Derek and I have a couple guys that kind of we agree on. And I'll touch on those 2 guys first. And we also have some guys that we don't agree on. We have different guys that we feel like need to get more snaps. So that's how we're going to break it down today. We'll start with the 2 guys that we feel like we agree on. They both need to see more snaps. The first guy is pretty obvious. First off, Taekwon Lewis. And now Derek is a big Taekwon Lewis guy, obviously an Ohio State fan. He's watched Taekwon Lewis since he's been at Ohio State, now with the Indianapolis Colts. It's been really, really awesome to see Taekwon Lewis continue to grow this offseason. He took a lot of time off, really made it up in his mind to get both mentally and physically right and back to where he was as a player at Ohio State. And it's really paid dividends. I mean, Taekwon Lewis has looked the best he's looked as a pro. And he's coming off probably his best performance as a pro against the Cincinnati Bengals, where he was in, the Colts have struggled to get to the passer, but he was a part of a sack. He also was just all over the field. It seemed like every time there was a defender on the defensive line making a play, it was number 94. So Derek and I can agree on that. Taekwon Lewis deserves more snaps. And the good thing is, defensive line coach Brian Baker touched on that. He said Taekwon Lewis has been fantastic so far. He's earned himself more snaps. So it certainly looks like he's going to get more snaps. And that's great considering the defensive end position. It's had good moments, it's had its bad moments. Justin Houston and Nico Autry, they're pretty decent, but Taekwon Lewis, he has really showed out in my opinion and in Derek's opinion, and we feel like he deserves more of a chance to show what he's got. It's crazy to think this guy in the offseason, we were talking about it, could potentially have been cut if he didn't have a good performance in training camp. But he has taken every single opportunity, and he has run with it this offseason. And now he's getting more and more snaps. Maybe, who knows, that'll translate into a starting role down the line. Hopefully that does, because he's a second-round pick. He's still a high pick that you invested a few years ago. It's great to see him finally coming into his own as a player and as a presence on this defensive line. So he's the first guy. The second guy Derek and I agree on, Alie-Cox. I mean, obviously he missed last week's matchup against the Bengals with an injury. But before that, Alie-Cox, I would argue, is probably the most well-rounded tight end Colts have on their roster. I mean, he's a guy, he's over 6'6". He's got giant hands. He's shown potential as a pass catcher. And, we talked about it this offseason. This was the year for Alie-Cox to distinguish himself. Was he going to go in the trend of a Jimmy Graham, an Antonio Gates, former basketball player that turns into a really good pro as a tight end? Or was he going to be kind of an Eric Swope type of player, a project player that never really panned out? So this was the offseason. We said this is the most pivotal offseason for Alie-Cox to prove himself. And I feel like he's done a really good job in the limited snaps he's been given. But it's been a little bit curious. Why has his snap numbers gone down? I mean, you can factor in Trey Burton, who the Colts really like. I mean, he scored 2 touchdowns last week. But still feel like Mo Alie-Cox needs to be a part of the game plan. It's been a little bit baffling, quite honestly, to why the Colts haven't used him more in the last couple weeks when he has been healthy. Hopefully, as he gets healthy, as he has a week off to recover, and he can come back against the Detroit Lions, he'll get more of an opportunity and an expanded role in this offense. Really hope that does happen for him because he's certainly earned it. He's got all the physical tools. He's probably the best run-blocking tight end on this roster. And like I said, he's the most well-rounded player, especially now that he's kind of coming to his own a little bit in the receiving department, and he has a really good connection with Phillip Rivers. So he's the second guy that Derek and I agree with. Now, here's kind of where we're going to split off, and I don't necessarily always agree with what Derek's has on his list here. He says George Odom is one of his guys he feel like needs to get more snaps. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, and I'll just explain why. First off, you got Julian Blackmon, who's really coming to his own. He's your starting free safety, and Khari Willis is your starting strong safety. And I really like where George Odom is as kind of a special teams ace, a guy that can fill in spot duty. And I just think he's a really solid player, but I honestly think the potential with Willis and Blackmon is higher. So I'm not really disappointed in the snap count that he has right now. I feel like it's pretty good for the type of player that he is. Solid player, good special teamer. I kind of like where he's at right now, quite honestly. But Derek obviously feels like he deserves more of a role in this defense. And so I can respect that. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. The next guy that Derek has on his list, Daurice Fountain. Now, we know, if you've watched this channel at all, you know Derek's great love for Daurice Fountain. I mean, obviously has a great story. It's been incredible just watching him come back and, tear it up in training camp the last few years. But Reese Fountain, he was inactive in the game against the Bengals for DeMichael Harris. And some people were a little bit like, whoa, that's kind of comes a little bit of as a surprise. Derek feels like he needs to get back to being active, getting more snaps with some of the injuries to the wide receiver group. I don't know if I necessarily agree. I kind of like DeMichael Harris because he gives you a little bit more of a Paris Campbell type of player, whereas Daurice Fountain, you kind of have some of those body types already on your roster. So for me, I don't know if I necessarily agree that he needs to get more snaps, but I can see where Derek's coming from because the guy's worked hard for everything through his pro career. It's certainly been good to see him continue to get better as a receiver. But as it stands right now, I'm not really on that train quite yet. Derek also has Al-Quadin Muhammad as another guy on his list, a defensive end. I can kind of agree with that one, though, because I feel like the Colts need to get more of the defensive ends and more of these younger defensive linemen in general more involved and more snaps and more rotation in their defensive line. It's obvious they've struggled to get to the quarterback the last couple weeks, and I'm just kind of the belief, why don't you give some of these younger guys a chance to maybe provide some more juice for your pass rush? And I think that's a good start, is giving Muhammad more snaps. And I hope that the Colts continue to do that, to give him more snaps. So I agree with that one. And I'll just go right off of that to one of my guys, speaking of young defensive linemen, Ben Banigou. I really feel like Ben Banigou, he had a really nice rush on Sunday that, the game-sealing interception. Ben Banigou really kind of forced that. Obviously, Julian Blackmon made a great play as well. But I want to see Ben Banigou in more of an expanded role. Okay, you had your rookie season to kind of show some flashes. Now I'm ready for Banigou to really take it to the next level, get some more snaps, provide consistent pressure. He hasn't always been great at getting consistent pressure this year, but, in training camp, he was tearing it up. I want to see him in more of an expanded role as well as the season progresses and, getting your guys fresh, keeping your guys in waves. I want to see Banigou getting more snaps along, with a guy like Al-Quadin Muhammad and Taekwon Lewis. All right, so a couple more of my guys here. First off, I'm going to go Nyheim Hines. I'm going to go Nyheim Hines because it's very strange this season for Nyheim Hines. First week of the season, he's heavily involved in the offense, not just in the receiving aspect, but also he's very heavily involved in the running game. Like, it was really kind of like, what? You're running Nyheim Hines? That's not the type of player that he is, but he was really involved. And so I was like, okay, maybe the Colts are going to use him a bunch. Well, since then, it's been kind of strange. They haven't used him a ton. And it's kind of been confusing on, okay, why haven't you used him more in the pass catching department? We know how much Phillip Rivers loves to use his running backs. Heck, last year, Austin Eckler almost had 100 catches with Phillip Rivers as quarterback. So it's been a little bit puzzling why Nyheim Hines hasn't got more snaps and more catches and more targets. I would really like to see that go up. And I really think that he's shown throughout his career, when he's utilized, he's a very dangerous player. So I feel like the Colts, who have struggled beyond a couple games this season to pass the football effectively, especially with Paris Campbell being injured for the foreseeable future, you need to get the ball into a guy like Hines' hands. I mean, he's an explosive player waiting to happen. He was the fastest running back drafted in that 2018 draft. You got to get him more snaps, in my opinion. I really want to see him in more of an expanded role, not just as a punt returner, but as a pass catcher as well. And even if you feel like you could run him, I want to see him used in a variety of ways. I feel like the Colts really need to utilize him more coming off the bye, because you're going to see a gauntlet of players, and you're going to need your offense to play like it did in terms of the passing game against the Bengals. So I really want to see Nyheim Hines get more of an expanded role as well. And the final guy on my list here, I got to go. It's pretty obvious, I feel like, if you watched the Colts last week, and if you kind of watched this guy's career with the Colts the last couple seasons, whenever he's gotten an opportunity, he has thrived in it, and he has taken full advantage of it. It's been a little bit puzzling why he hasn't gotten more of a chance. That's Marcus Johnson. Now, Marcus Johnson has shown consistently that he can make plays. Dating all the way back to 2018 when he was first with the Colts, in that Jets game, he had a touchdown, showed a little bit of flash of potential, obviously got hurt, was out for the year. Okay, let's talk about last year. Kind of comes in a pinch when all your receivers are injured, when Hilton's injured, obviously Funchess was injured, all your receivers were injured, Campbell was injured. What does he do? He comes in and makes plays for you. Marcus Johnson, you think about that Tampa Bay game, makes a huge catch down the sideline. Marcus Johnson is a very reliable receiver, and he also can make some plays. I mean, he had over 100 yards against the Bengals, and honestly could have had a lot more. There was one play I remember watching, and I was at the game, so I remember watching this, where Marcus Johnson had his man beat. Phillip Rivers just overthrew him. So you think about that. If Phillip Rivers just lays a dime on him, he probably has over 150 receiving yards. I mean, Marcus Johnson is a guy that deserves more snaps, in my opinion. Him and Taekwon Lewis are my top two in no particular order that I feel like really, really need more snaps as the season progresses along. And if the Colts want to get their, get these young guys involved, get the youth involved, this is the time to do it. Take a week, evaluate, figure out which guys are going to get more snaps as the season progresses. In mine and Derek's opinions, these are the guys we feel like really need a chance and really need more run, more opportunities to continue to do what they're doing. So that'll wrap up this podcast, guys. Also, be sure to enter our giveaway. We're giving away a free Indianapolis Colts light. Be sure to get entered into that. You can go find it on our social media accounts. Be sure to go check that out, get involved, and be sure to get entered into that, because we want to make sure we're doing that. We're going to give it away this Sunday, so be sure to tune in for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you'll join us for that. But that'll do it for this episode, guys. Let me know, are there any guys that I missed or Derek missed that you feel like need more run with this Indianapolis Colts team after the bye week? Let us know in the comments below. But for Derek, myself, thank you guys so much. And as always, go Colts.